Hey everybody, it takes a stroke here. Lance's Performance Shop along Mopars.com. Saturday night, 10:30. It is hot and humid, and here in a little bit you'll probably hear this crazy cricket fire up. It's kind of a deafening chirp it was putting out, but we're going to jump right into it. We have got something that we needed to complete a set, and that is the Icon half-inch drive metric. There's the cricket right on cue. Shallow set. This is a situation for the longest time. Half-inch, particularly deep, was basically unobtainable. And we recently were able to finally get those. They came back in stores, and kind of it's a deal where I'm not going to buy these unless I can get 20% off. This is Labor Day weekend, so they've got 4 days of 20% off. Friday after work, I ran up and I cashed in on these before they disappeared with the weekend sale or something stupid. So that is why we got them. The price on these has dropped as well. They're sitting at $59.99. Basically think of it as $60 if you will. 20% off, that's 1/5. That would be $12. So $48 with tax. I was out the door for $53, $54, somewhere in that range. So I feel pretty good about that price. The sad thing is I've not gotten to do much at all with the Icon Deeps that we have. And that's in part because I've been using other sockets, or I've been using the 3/8 because it's like tighter clearances on what I've been doing. So that's kind of where we stand. It was always a plan. I wanted to have Icon impacts to test them out, compare them versus the Pittsburgh. Man, that thing is annoying. Like, I mean, that is just absurdly loud. There's a big wolf spider that I didn't kill either, and I'm gonna wait it out and see if kind of a natural selection takes order here. So, anywho, I will temporarily be on Team Spider because that's just absurdly loud. Good lord. Anyway, if I can concentrate on this, that was always kind of the plan. Like, I know what works, I know what I like. Particularly at work, it's all Wright and Proto. That's what I'm confident with. That's what I have experience with. I know it lasts. And that's why you see my deeps are Proto and the shallows are Wright. That was sort of my hybrid mix and match type of a way. Proto, you get a little bit more bang for your buck than Wright. And I mean, you get some very, even across their standard chrome sockets, like you get really solid size selections with Proto. So right here though, the Wright, again, in my opinion, these are kind of like the bee's knees of impacts. I love everything they do, the larger size stampings. It's oriented in the manner I want, which is business end faces up. The stamping is oriented in the same manner. You'll see why I'm mentioning that here in just a second. The Protos, ignore my cheesy stuff. It's really hard to find an orange paint pen that looks good. If you know of one, please let me know, because everything I brought in sucks. This guy's been seeing some use recently, just because, again, deep is going to be something that I use more often. What I love about those, though, is they are Chrome Moly. In my opinion, that's the route that you go. That's the route you need to take with an impact, particularly half-inch drive. Now, if you're thinking like, hey, I thought you had those cheap Pittsburghs. I do, but they literally only remove grade 2, if that, carriage bolts. Occasionally they'll spin like, cheap mounting bolts, but they're also only used with the 3/8 battery powered ratchet. That's it. If it was air, I'd be a little concerned about it. If it was half-inch drive, I would want Moly. I don't care what anyone's engineers say. I don't care how fancy of a chart or a graph they make. I was brought up, at work, and through the old dudes I hung around with, you use an impact. You obviously, you need an impact socket. I don't care if chrome lasts. I have seen chrome sockets grenade. I've seen people get sliced by chipping chrome. When it starts to spin, you have nice little chips, and you're aware of the rough spots, but it really does peel sometimes. And when it does, it comes off in sheets, and it's not pretty what it can do to your hand. So again, it's one of those things. Once you've seen it or you've experienced it, worst case scenario, you'll never spin, obviously, anything other than a hand ratchet with a chrome socket. So it's great for rust prevention. Some people like shiny, what have you, but if you're generating some RPMs with that like you can with battery or air, especially air, you owe it to yourself to take care of yourself and mitigate the number of incidents you can have, and that's one way to do it. So we're good on that front. We've got the black phosphate. It's not chrome. We're not going to have to worry about that. But what I like about the Icon over the Pittsburgh is it's actually Chrome Moly. It's something that you typically don't see with today's cheap impact sockets, if you will. Like the Pittsburgh is one of the reasons they're so cheap, is they're chrome vanadium. And again, if you kind of know what you're going to do with them, if they're a standard socket set that's never going to see power, that's totally great. You save some cash. If it's kind of low-end stuff, you know, battery-powered, you can go to town there. And you got to realize, anytime I use an impact, it's almost always going to be air, especially at work. It's air. That's it. We don't screw around. We want to get things taken care of, get it off, get it on, get it done, and that's the way we do it. Here, if I'm doing anything, you know, long-term, you know, short of like, oh geez, there's a nail in the tire, that, yeah, maybe I don't want to turn the air compressor on, we'll use a battery-powered impact. If it's something like far, far away, you know, and I'm like, geez, I don't even know if the air hose is going to reach, and by that I mean a series of them, it's battery-powered. But if I'm going to town doing the project, like, it's, the air compressor will be on and we're going to be utilizing it. So like I said, a lot of people try to sell, particularly, I'm not talking about individuals, I'm talking about like companies, and that's great. If they want to run with it, I'm sure they trust their own research, whether it's to push more sockets or just they genuinely believe it. But for me, that's, I want Moly, and I, especially again in half-inch drive. So covered this before, we won't spend much more time on it, but like I said, 60 bucks, 20% off, 48 for a 14 piece set, I'm sorry. I think that's a pretty solid buy. So hopefully they don't suck. Again, sadly, I've not gotten to experience it, but I wanted to. And this will basically allow us now with our 3/8 metric. We went ahead and we did Capri. Didn't get the semi-deep, but we got shallow and deep. They've been holding up fine. Again, I mainly use SAE. And then for half-inch, we're going to have these. We do have cheap Pittsburgh ones. If you recall, we brought those in. If you think like, well, that just goes against everything you said. That is true, minus one thing. Look at the sidewall on that right. Okay, look at the sidewall on the Proto. If I come in here, can I grab the 19 at random? 18. We got close. That is a pretty fat sidewall, particularly for something from Harbor Freight that a lot of people would not think would have that size of a sidewall, right? So this is going to be the same geometries that we should see here. It's Chrome Moly. It's a thick wall. It's not near as pronounced on the, whatever you want to call it, wave drive AS. Essentially, just instead of having this straight across the flats, you've got the peak. And what that's going to do, when you've got the fastener in there, it's going to grab from the flats instead of the corner. So whether you're trying to break something that's stuck free, or you're just, you know, hammering it down for whatever reason far past when it would have been tight, you're less likely to round the corners off. And if you're the person that has to take the bolt off the next time, you certainly appreciate that. So it checks all the boxes there. Note, I mean, like, these really are, in my opinion, the best you can do in terms of impact sockets, Wright and Proto. And this is perhaps not quite as thick of a wall, but it's got the flank drive. It is the makeup, the material that we want. And if you're thinking like, well, why on earth would you have the half-inch cheap ones that are made out of chrome vanadium? You just said why you wouldn't do that. Well, it's because these are fat-walled sockets, okay? And that's typically what you want with an impact socket. You want to have a weighted socket. It's advantageous to you. It saves you time in the long run. But where it's not good is where it does not fit the fastener, okay? Like, you take this fat socket here and you drop it down, and let's say that we are, you know, at the back of a block or a transmission, and if this socket's fat enough and it can't get to the fastener, like let's say it's going down a bore and it holds up. You can either come in and you can kind of grind down on the socket, or you can go with a thinner socket. This is one of the reasons why I think a lot of people just use a standard chrome socket. They might have their fat, nice impact, be it, you know, Wright, Proto, tool truck, what have you. But when they try to use it, it's like, well, it doesn't fit. And so they'll go and they'll grab their 3/4, you know, chrome socket. And that's, again, if you've seen them peel, you will never do that to yourself. And that's where the cheap ones come in. It's if this does not drop down over an 18mm fastener, that's when I go and I get the vanadium one, and it hopefully has the thinner wall and we can drop it down. That's literally what it comes down to for me personally. So that's kind of where we stand. This is a better example of the 19mm, and this is again versus the Proto and versus the Wright Shallow. But what we're going to do is take a look at some selling points from Harbor Freight. You got my take first. We're going to see what they have to say, and then we will compare the shallows versus our Wright. I might go grab some Capri. It's not a great example because it's 3/8 drive. And then we'll make sure that these match up with their taller counterparts. So once again, the part number is going to be 13SM-14. I've got it linked. I make nothing off that. That's for your convenience. I would not advise buying online from Harbor Freight. I would go to the store. If it's a deal where your store doesn't have it and you need it, but you don't have to have it, you know, like the next day, if you can wait possibly a week to 10 days, go ahead and order it, particularly if there's a sale and it's in stock. Otherwise, do every single thing you can to procure your items in the store. That's just a huge benefit to you regardless of the drive. If you're within 30 minutes, it's worth your time, all right? Trust me on that one. Professional impact socket set, again, Icon is kind of their cream of the crop line, if you will. High visibility stamped size markings for easy identification. Sort of. Let's say that. Chamfered socket openings for easy engagement. This is not something I've covered yet, but it's something that I love, and it's really my only knock against the Capris, is they're just flush cut. There's competing schools of thought there. Some people say it's better to have it flush. It'll last longer. Other people say the opposite thing. I just know from my personal experience, I like this. I like the chamfer. I like to be able to locate it easy. A lot of times I'm on my back or I'm in precarious situations, and if I have to switch it over, the easier this goes on, the better. I've also had some impacts that are squared, and I think it tends to round them out faster. That's, again, personal observation. It could vary by socket. It could vary by brand. It could vary by production run. There's all sorts of things that we can't really get into because we don't have the time to test it, but it's sort of personal preference there. Unless you just really want the true flush 90-degree drop, I think most people would prefer chamfer. There's some people that don't even think about it, don't care about it. They would fall in the chamfered crowd, I'm sure. But if you want that true flush, if you think the chamfer is a weak spot or shortens the life of the impact socket or something, might take a look at the Capris. They're Chrome Moly and they have that design. So me personally, I like this on the Icon as well. Precision forged for maximum grip and torque. Premium storage tray included, which again, we don't really care about that. It's not a terrible waste of space, but it could certainly be more efficient, is what I'm going to say. Particularly if you get it in a singular row like we have back there on our Ernst rail. Sizes, this is also a big deal. This will be a selling point for some of you, and it will be a deterrent for some of you. We'll cover that here as we finish it, but basically 10 through 19 is complete. A lot of sets are just 10 through 19, okay? Some of them are all the way through. Again, if you need oddball sizes or ones you don't use often, or you like to have like a 20 so you can, you know, masking tape it up and drive seals with it or something, Capri again would be something I would recommend you looking at. But from the 19 slot, we jump to 21, 22. Note that there's not a 24, 26 and 27. So you're not jumping up to 30 or 32. There very well could be a size in there that you know that you use frequently, and that would be a deterrent. And the reason it would be a deterrent is currently, and I still don't get this about Icon, you can't walk in the store and just buy a socket. Like, I can guarantee you, if they had a 30 and a 32 available, like, people would go buy them. There's people that have these that would love these, and they just need bigger sizes, or a 36 maybe. It doesn't exist. Same thing here. They might decide, like, man, this covers like 85% of people. This is the set. If we put, you know, this socket and that socket in, the price goes up. We sell fewer units. People don't try them out. It's a bad idea. But they also then don't offer you the 24. So it's kind of a catch-22. I'm sure they've got their reasons, just like every other company that jumps around. Sometimes you see different sizes forsaken and others included. I can't explain it. I'm not involved in the marketing decisions. I just kind of know as a consumer, particularly in the American marketplace, people like no skips. It's a concept of, hey, I might need that at some point in time. Maybe you're into Duramax diesels and you know that you need these sizes and it covers this, but then your buddy comes over and there's Power Stroke and, ooh, you know, you needed a 24 or something. Just, it's one of those reasons why people pay money to get the full set with no skips, which again is something that you see with companies like Proto and Wright. One way to work around that is to offer sort of like the small sizes and the big sizes together. ideally you'd have them all where people would save the most money. Then you could have like your 10 through 19, and then you're up and above beyond that for the rest of the people. Or you could just sell them individually too and let people kind of piece this together, like that's their starting point, and then you just customize it from there, right? So anyway, that's what she looks like. Now there's the Cricket coming back, and the back panel, we're going to zoom in so we can take a look at this thing. It's basically the same things, but chamfered opening for easy fastener and drive-in engagement. So again, both ends of the socket. They've got a semi-shallow hex depth, and some people rave about that, some people are indifferent. Basically, it's a deal, not necessarily with a bolt unless it's super stubby, you know, or the threads, or it breaks, then it might be an issue. Basically, with threads being below that point, you have to fish it out with needle nose. But a lot of times, people get nuts stuck, and if you don't necessarily have, you know, say the threads to screw in and extract it, it's just sort of problematic. And the closer it is to the end, the happier people are. Obviously, if it was down here in the deepest well of the socket, might be a problem. You might have to stop, go by threaded rod. Typically when I have that happen, I just take a punch to the backside. However, some sockets, it's very hard to do that because of the way they're designed. So that's little things that you don't ever think about until something bad happens. But that's how these are set up, so I think most people tend to prefer that. But it does also limit you on your depth sometimes, so it's sort of a catch-22 there as well. They claim it's a thin wall design, and it's not the fattest sidewall, but it's pretty beefy to their credit. And again, I say that as a positive. That's why I would suggest getting, you know, or having the cheap vanadium impacts just for those situations. Use these every single chance you can, but when you have a deal where you're hitting a wall and you can't get it down to engage the fastener, then go to your cheap one and limit it to that use. If you've got the money, that's the way I would do it. Easy to read size markings. Again, we'll take a look at those on these stubbies in just a second. Now, we know from our previous experience with these icons, pretty fancy packaging. They could probably change that and save a little cash too, but if you were to leave this in the case, I think people would appreciate it. So again, you could swing it one way or the other, but like I said, most people are just going to have this gray tray that you'll see in just a second sitting in their box. Some people, you know, work in really dusty environments, or it could be a deal where they travel. It would be advantageous to actually keep this thick lid. That's going to limit the dust or the debris that gets in. But I'm going to come in, I believe it is a #1 Phillips. If we can engage the fastener. Did they go to Torx? Nope, there we go. So yep, it's a #1 Phillips. I'm going to get these out of here, and we'll take a look at the finished product. Alright, I saved this satisfying part for you. Can we get all four with a little PB Swiss? Indeed we can. So I'll hang on to those because it's very difficult for me to find M3 screws in this town, so maybe those will come in handy at some point in time. Now we just need fingernails or luck. We got her. Again, this is a thick, durable lid. Some of you will like that. There's also this. It's a little bit less bulky, obviously. It would be a good option. Again, body shop type stuff. I'm going to lift it off, set it off to the side. Like I said, the tray is kind of a personal preference deal. It might also depend on where you're working or where you're going to have this particular set of sockets. But get it out, the cardboard's not wanting to come. That does actually strengthen these if you're ever curious about it. Some people glue them, sometimes they're just loose like that. Curious, does anyone keep this for things? Like, let's say that you just rock this in your toolbox, or you put it on a rail and you junk it. Do you keep this thick piece of plastic? Kind of a decent tray. It's a shame that there's not like a hinged lid or something, but I guess you could technically put that back on it. But it's an interesting thought. Like, do people keep these? You could pretty nice storage out of it, really. So I'll set that down, and I just noticed something. Check this out. I don't know who did this. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it. You can totally see it. 56365. No clue what that means, but it's there. So hopefully these haven't been opened up. They don't seem to be. I'll grab the 27 here. I think we're okay. So anyway, once again, 10 through 17 on the top row, 18 and 19 here. 10 through 19 is complete, and then sort of thrown in as your bonus sockets or to complete what they deem Essential 21, 22, 26, and 27. Again, your results may vary. It just sort of depends. We'll grab the 10 here, which again is nice. It's included. Gives you one more in case you lose them all the time. This is sort of one of the things I don't like about Icon, the way they've done them. Granted, if you store them in their tray, which I guess that would be their pass for this decision, you're going to have these size markings. They're not the easiest things to see. You could easily paint pin them or something. But it's just a situation. That's fine. That's what you go by. But then right here, okay, the way they do it, you've got the 10, which to their credit, it's decent size. I mean, there's some people that do tiny, tiny stampings. Note also the Icon is a bit smaller of a font than the 10. That's nice. A lot of times brands want you to see them and they don't care if you see the size. You got the Chrome Moly designation. But right here, that 10, if I flip this to put it on, say, an Ernst socket rail, a Mechanics Time Saver rail, a friction peg from Mechanics Time Saver, something from Olsa, basically anything that's not one of the posts, I want the 10 to be visible, right? So it would be oriented in this manner. Now if you flip it this way, it's upright, but again, that's typically styles of holders I'm not a fan of. So that's a minor complaint. The other thing, and I'm going to grab the 19 here, just so we can sort of have apples to apples. This is kind of a personal complaint, I guess. But again, you can see like the 19 is there, but I mean, it looks more of like a 61 kind of, right? Because they orient like this. So the plan, of course, is to fill that. It's just a situation where I would prefer that the 19 be oriented like this. Now, my complaint and my suggestion for Icon, since this is their premium, top-of-the-line impact socket, if you will, that you pay way more than Pittsburgh or Pittsburgh Pro for at Harbor Freight, wouldn't it be nice if it was lasered or printed in some degree, where you've got the 19 on this side, and then over here, if you don't want to roll stamp it the other way for people like myself, just have it printed, like somewhere, a 19. I think for the price point, I don't think that's asking for much. Because again, you can get that with some of their lower end sockets. That's sort of what you see with, say, the Tectons, right? So that's something I would suggest. We can come over here to the Capri. Now keep in mind, this is 3H drive. I'm not buying, I don't do near enough metric to need 2 half-inch drive sets. But this is Capri's take on it, right? And they've got the 19 down here oriented just like I like it, where it's, you know, drive end down, business end up. And then they also have it over here, the laser etching and the part number. Now, the cool thing there is, yes, this will come off over time, but by having it juxtaposed, you know, opposite sides, number 1, and then 2, roll stamped and lasered, you double your chances. So, I mean, yes, over time, that's probably going to go away, especially if you use it and depending on the confines. But it's nice to have it initially. And it's sort of just a really good supplementation to that. Now, Capri, to their credit, they don't sort of have like tiered products. This is just it. But with Icon being the bee's knees at Harbor Freight, that is something I think they should do. Tecton, for example, they do make Chrome Moly sockets, but only in the sizes they deem necessary. If you come in and get their cheap Vanadium sockets, it's the same way. Actually, they may not be roll stamped. I don't think I grabbed one because the stupid set that I bought, it's a very weird way they did that, but there is no shallow 19. It's like you would need a 19. You go down the line here and you've got an 18, and then you jump and I think there's like a 20 or a 21, but if you need a 19 half-inch drive, you need a deep socket. That's one of the reasons I purchased that, you know, and then as I used it more and more, I was like, this kind of sucks. And so that's where these came in to sort of upgrade that. But that's good to like carry, I guess, but it's not something you would want like as your main shop base set. So my suggestion for Icon, print on one side, be super cool. Now the Capris, again, I don't get to use metric a ton, but this kind of gives you an idea how they hold up. The 13 here, that's rubbed clean off, that fresh black phosphate. The interior, obviously, if you got it looking like that, you know, she's been used a bit, but the interior is actually holding up quite well. And again, that's typically what I see with Chrome Moly stuff. So 19 millimeters, that's about as close as we can get to 3/4. However, This is what I wanted to do. This is the icon. This is totally 100% icon. You can see it because it's upside down, so when I spin her over, I'm not making this stuff up. I don't have any nefarious purposes. I'm just a dude comparing things. Drive end here will even orient them the same. You'll note that going by this peg, then reading to the left, we have icon. Going by this peg, it's roll stamped in a totally different position, and I guess it's not farther up, but it sure looks like it is. So that's minor stuff. They're both chamfered, I would say about the same. It's fine by me. Note that the deep one, you've got that inset there, which again, if you have something stuck that you don't have threads or a bolt to pull back out, that's going to limit your ability with a punch, particularly if it's a nut, to get it out and maintain the structural integrity, i.e. the threads of said nut. Whereas this one straight through, whatever you get stuck in there, you can chip that sucker out from the bottom side. Now, coming back around, it could be my eyes, I don't know, but it just looks like the deep in my left hand has a fatter profile than the shallow one. It absolutely does. I hope you can see that there. What I'm doing, where my index finger's tapping down, I've got them flush, and you see that overhang there? I'm not going to bust out the calipers or anything, but look at that. I don't understand that, because now if I was comparing a 27 and a 13, sure, I would expect it. But why on your deeps would you use? Well, it's one of two things. They've got just a larger core, where they come in and they're running, we'll just say 1-inch solids or something that they machine down for this particular size range, and then over here they're doing like 3/4, or it could be a deal where they start with the same and they just turn it down for, I don't know. I cannot explain it, but I would think that if we came in and we had the Capris, like I can go shallow, semi-deep, and deep, they're going to be spot on, right? If we did right, we could do that Proto. This isn't necessarily a terrible thing, because this gives us a situation where if we can't fit this in a crevice, right, an opening, I can come in with this guy. Now, we might have to run an extension, but that's slightly smaller. And again, this is why I said it's nice to have like the cheap vanadium sockets on hand. That little difference right there, this 19 may not fit. This one could. So it's strange that the exact same impact socket has like a different, overall diameter. But at the same time, it's a situation where it could be beneficial to you. So if you've heavily invested, you've got the icons, and let's say that this is a consistent feature through their drive series. If you have their 3/8 metric sets, your 19 deep is like, can't go through, and then you go and you grab your shallow, and it's like, wow, it'll actually fit. So it could be good, but it's also, just like I said, kind of strange. So comparing these two side by side, even though they're both icons and they're both pretty recent pickups, it's not like I've had the deeps sitting around for 2 years or their first batch. Like, they're both very, very recent. I think those are like my last trip to Harbor Freight. Just an interesting little thing that we've noticed there. Now, coming in, if we grab, this is 3/8 drive from Capri. Obviously, it's not a fair comparison, but again, that little bit of difference there, right? I mean, this makes a difference. It's why sometimes, even with chrome sockets, your 3/8 doesn't fit. You have to drop down a 1/4 drive to access the fastener. So having a wide variety of impact sockets is a good thing, and it keeps you from using the chrome, which again can come back to bite you quite literally. Now, comparatively to the Proto, I know this is deep, but it's all I've got on hand here at the house. Pretty similar, obviously not near as aggressive of a chamfer. Again, personally, I love that feature. If we mate these two side by side, pretty dadgum close, if I don't say so myself. Looks like their detent hole is a little bit bigger. Now, some people might think, oh, cool, that's nice, but typically when you see that, it's not going to grab the detents as well, right? So it results in a looser socket. With a wobble, it might come off easier. Again, it's kind of a catch-22 type of a thing. Now, on the business end, there it is. The Proto is, like I said, for the money, it's a pretty solid little option for you. I'd say they're pretty close. And then right there, the sidewall, I'm even going to say they're really close. The icon might be a little bit fatter of a sidewall. So we'll set the Proto down, but if we want to talk about fat sidewalls, this is one of the reasons I love these Wright impacts. Check this out. I really regret having that in the background, but super, super nice geometries there. Again, you can kind of tell the difference in the machine processes. The Wright is just a little bit bigger, okay? So you can kind of see right there, that could be 19 3/4, who knows. As I spin this around, I want you to pay attention to how easy you see the 3/4 on the Wright and how easy it is to see Wright and USA even. It's just stamped deeper. It's not that this is a super tiny font, but it's the depth. Wright does have, a much better stamp than pretty much anybody, but it's a situation where it's these little things that you can do or change to make this better and more of the premium they're after, in my opinion. So slightly larger, I'm not asking for like half the socket or anything crazy, just maybe a little bit bigger, and then similarly deeper, right? It looks better, it's easier. I mean, I don't make this stuff up, but if I hold these here side by side for you, I've got to flip it so you can see it. It's just, the 3/4 is much more crisp, in my opinion. No matter where I roll, even if you can just see the start of the 3, it's just easier to see that than the 19. In terms of beefiness of the sidewall here, the Wright is going to take the cake, but again, that's kind of what I know them for. So all in all, for the money, I don't really have any complaints. It's just, I would love for, if this was Pittsburgh, we wouldn't even reference that stuff. It might be suggestions, but for icon, I feel like they need to do it. My preference, again, I'll give them slack on that. I would prefer if this 27 sits up right here, I would like it to say 27, in this manner. They obviously prefer this. Similarly, the other thing, I think at this price point with Harbor Freight and who's going to walk in there and buy the sockets, doing what Capri does with the lasered numbers would be really nice for customers. Particularly then if in this package, and this is another selling point, note that in this tray, the 27 is here, and if I line this up, the 27's upside down. Do that, but when you print them or laser them, put the 27 here, and if you can get those sockets to stay like that in shipping, or just a few of them even, it just looks better hanging on the rack. Personal preference, I'm thinking outside the box here of like marketing and point of sale, contact with customer type of a thing, but it's something I would do. And again, at the price point, at the way they market these, they don't market this for like little weekend warrior DIY, you need impacts for the first time in your life. This is like, hey, this is your lifetime impact socket set. This is icon. You're heavily investing in these tools and they're going to last. Little things stretch that impression, make it more favorable for the company. But what we're going to do is actually stick these things. I've got my Ernst half-inch green rails. They came in. That's the way we're going to set these up. It is stupid hot in here. I think I'm going to turn a fan back on, and I turned it off for your audio enjoyment, and then it's about the time the cricket started going haywire, so I think I'll get a fan on, put that together. Maybe I'll put it here at the end of the video as bonus content for you. Who knows? But if not, this is it. This is the closeout. LoneStarMopars.com is the website. You can find us Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all three at Lone Star Mopars. With that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, leave a comment. Let me know your personal experience. Some of you are going to have had icon impacts for a very long time. Let everyone know how they're holding up for you, if you think they're well worth it. If you're like, man, I spent, $70 on this socket set and it's just as good as insert brand X that I had in the past. Or, hey, it's not quite as good as my insert brand Y, but for the money, you can't go wrong. And similarly, if you've had these and you grenade them, you blow them up, you have terrible experience, they don't last. They're good for like 3 months and then they just go to pot. You notice they hold up well on battery power tools. When you put them on air, they just get chewed up. Whatever your experience is, please share it, because again, people watching this video, it's because they're interested in these, which means they're one of two things: thinking about buying them or just bought them. you know, type of a deal. And this is an unboxing, it's initial impressions, it's suggestions, until I have seat time, a lot of seat time, or seat time enough for these to suck completely, which you typically know that better, before I should say, if they're good. I can't sit here and put my name on them. I can't say, like, yep, totally recommend them, they're going to be fantastic. I can do that with Wright and Proto because I've used them for so long, right? This, it's new, I haven't had the time with them. Ideally, if I had these in like 3/8 SAE, I'd use the things all the time. I'd also want them in half so I could use them with air tools. But as it is, I wanted to just stick with what I know, especially on the 1/2 inch side. But these are it. This is my 1/2 inch drive stuff here. This is the best ones now. And if these are great, we saved a ton of money. If they suck, we're going to get Wright and Proto, just like I did previously. But we're going to give them a go. That was one of the big things. I wanted to try out the Icon impacts, and I do like a lot of things about them. The price, the Chrome Moly, they're chamfered on the edge, they're chamfered on the drive end. I think there's a couple things they could do better, particularly, you know, lasering one side. I prefer it to be flipped for the roll stamping. I'll give them pass there, even though that goes against their tray. Just basically everything we've talked about. And like I said, that is that. If I do the bonus clip, you'll see that. But again, your thoughts always appreciated. Not just for my information and knowledge and what to expect, but again, for everyone else watching this. It's real nice to come in, and if you've got 20 people that say, man, those things are great, can't go wrong. Wow, $40, you did great there. Or, man, you shouldn't have bought those, they're junk. Whatever it might be, that's beneficial information for people. So, again, first-hand experience, always the best. If you got it, feel free to share it. That said, I'm going to try to get a fan on here, and I will catch you back here for more action from the shop. Man, I was sitting here getting ready to film the next video, and as I was like cleaning up, I was like, oh man, totally forgot to do this. So I've grabbed the 27, and we're going to come in here. Again, that's one of the perks of impact sockets. Not only do they work well on impacts, but you can actually come in and use them on as a hand socket. Basically, chrome replacement saves you a little bit of money. That's why I would recommend going with impact sockets first many times. But here it is on a Hazette. This is kind of like my go-to 1/2 inch drive ratchet. In fact, right before pulling this off, it had the Proto 3/4 on it, so it fit really nice there. Place that's more apt to see this is going to be on the end of an impact, right? So if we take our Hercules here, this is not the fancy new one, this is the OG one. So you've seen it before, but there she is lined up, nice slow. So right there, I mean, kind of get the feel for it, not terrible on the play. Again, these are sort of just O-ring based, they don't have like a detent or anything crazy on them. And that's that. So yeah, my apologies, totally. I had the stuff here to do that and I forgot. I saw it as I was cleaning up. So I'm going to get back to this because it's after 11 and I'm going to try to knock this out real quick. I somehow remembered I told you I would show this. I've done an Ernst video after that. It turned out real good. And then I was filming some more stuff for random compilations. But for the Harbor Freight Icon set, I told you, if I remembered, I would have this thing on the rails for you. This is its current home. Again, 10 through 19, no skips. 21, 22, 26, and 27. Start to get some big sockets there on the back end. Super happy with how that turned out. Again, it looks killer on top of the green, and it works really well for me with what I've done here. So there they are, though. That is our Harbor Freight 1/2 inch drive, shallow and deep, metric impacts from the Icon line. 10 through 27. We'll get to put those things through the paces, see how they hold up for us over time. We'll update you. Again, your experience is appreciated, but that's where these suckers will be waiting until they're called into service. So thanks again for watching. Have yourself a great week, and I hope I catch you back here for more from the shop.